Yep lads, incredibly stupid man here because I accidentally deleted all of my GT4 footage playing with Darking and Jardia and the boys. So now I have no GT4 video, so have this video instead. Bye bye. So the GT4 pack has just been released for Assetto Corsa Compitizione, and it's fantastic. It's pretty much everything everyone has been asking for in GT4 cars. The cars feel great to drive. They are literally as you'd expect. You know, they're a bit slower, they've got less downforce, and they require a bit of a different driving style. So I've got to hand it to Kunos, they've absolutely smashed this DLC out of the park. However, I must address one thing about the GT4 pack that a couple of people have been complaining at, and that is price. See, the DLC pack costs £18 or around $20, and a few murmurings hearing that have been saying that's just too expensive. But I'm gonna have to disagree, because when you look at it, the team of Kunos has been working extremely hard at this, and for 11 cars to be added to the game, that's actually a very good deal, considering how much work has gone into it. And not to mention that when you compare it to the likes of iRacing, where you pay around $10 to $15 per car or racetrack, that's a bargain, I'd say, getting 11 cars for that price. And not to mention, it's an entirely new racing discipline. But I've got to stop rambling. That's my opinion. I'd like to hear what you think in the comments. Let me know below if you agree or disagree. Let me know what your opinion is. But with all that being said, Assetto Corsa is still a growing game, and there are a few things that the Kunos could actually really go for to make this game absolutely stellar. Now, before I get into this top 5, I just need to clarify, I'm mixing my personal opinion with what the community has been saying as well. So some of these points I'm going to say this is what I'd like to see, and I'm going to add in points what the community would like to see. So these are 5 things that Assetto Corsa Compitizione could do to be an absolute stellar game. Not that it isn't stellar already. So starting with number 5, netcode. I know it seems a little bit unforgiving, but the community has been asking for a netcode improvement for quite a bit of time, but the netcode in this game still does need improving. Cars spin out way too easily from just the lightest of taps, which isn't realistic, because the lightest of taps is like the equivalent of being hit by a steam train. And in even some cases, you don't even have to be touching the other person.
Let's have a look at the replay. Ah, netcode. Netcode. It was super close, but
let me just clarify one thing. Personally, I don't think the netcode is all bad, but it does need a little bit of improvement. And again, I know netcode is not an easy thing to fix, but when it comes to online racing, when you're racing with people from around the world or your friends, it's the bottom layer of the cake. It's the base, and it needs to be good. Not that it hasn't been improving already. It's very good as to where it is now. It just still needs that bit more. Because GT3 and GT4 racing, it's all about rolling your sleeves up and having a bit of a tussle. Number 4 is user-friendly custom lobbies. Now this is more of a personal opinion, but the way that the multiplayer lobbies work, I don't particularly like. Because if you want to just race with only your friends, you and your friends have to know how to set up a server. And if you're not the practical person when it comes to knowing what to do, like me, it's a bit of a nightmare. I think there should be at least an option within the multiplayer where you can just go create new server, and it should all be in-game. A game that actually does this really well, and I know I'm going to get some flack for saying this, but Project Cars 2, you go into the main menu, create online event, tweak some settings that you want, and I mean, you can literally tweak everything in-game. Turn your racing license rating off, turn penalties off, then bada bing, bada boom, it pops up in the server list, and people can access it like that. I know some people say it's easy in Assetto Corsa or Assetto Corsa Compitizione to set up servers, but personally for me, it isn't. I kind of just want a more user-friendly way of going about it. But again, this is my personal opinion. I'd like to know what you guys think in the comments. Number 3, the addition of street circuits. Now, we already know that the creators at Kunos are developing 3 new racetracks for the British series, consisting of Snetterton, Alton Park, and Donington, which are going to be coming. And trust me, I'm very excited for that. However, I kind of wish there was more of a variety. And what I mean by that is styles of track, really. Now, you see, most of the tracks that we get in ACC are these broad broad, spacious, open racetracks with plenty of runoff area, and they're very often very forgiving. And there's often not much serious consequence for going off the circuit, with apart from losing time or losing a position or spinning out even. I mean, the closest thing we get to a street racing circuit is Bathurst. Now, Bathurst has become extremely popular recently because it is a tremendous challenge. Me and Switchback, for example, have just gotten ourselves addicted to racing around Mount Panorama, purely because that mountain section is so thrilling to get right. It's so tight and twisty and narrow, and it's a challenge. And that's what I kind of want to see coming to Assetto Corsa. There's more circuits like that, and when I say that, I mean street circuits. And it's not as though we don't have a good selection of street circuits to choose from. You have circuits like Long Beach and Macau. Macau is a great example of a street circuit. Y'all have seen this, right?
One seems to have got away with this. Eduardo Mortara there in second place, just over
wall of Reservoir Bend. Doesn't look as though there's major damage to the car, but we'll keep you informed as to whether... Oh, no! Oh, mayhem! And there's millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions.
Imagine having a 25-car lobby racing around Macau. It would force people to really learn the circuit, because if you mess up at these tracks, the consequences are much higher. But obviously, circuits like Monaco are never going to ever be added to the game, because one, GT3s, Blanchepont, IMSA, GTE, GT World Series, none of them ever race at Monaco. While the idea is really good, it's just, you know, that's not what would happen. So yeah, some street circuits would be nice in the future. Number 2, force feedback improvements. Now this is a thing that I keep on seeing popping up here and there all the time. There's quite a large amount of people that criticize Assetto Corsa for the force feedback, saying stuff like it's rather vague and the detail is a little bit numb. Now when I first heard this complaint, I thought, really? The force feedback being vague? I've never personally had a problem with it, but apparently a lot of people do. When I asked someone about it, they said go and play R-Factor 2. Now R-Factor 2 is a game that's way older than Assetto Corsa Compitizione. Graphics are dated, the sounds are all dated. It's a very aged game. But then someone told me that R-Factor 2 is still being used today to train real-life GT3 drivers. And that got me thinking. Huh, maybe I should go and give that a try and see why these people are saying force feedback needs improving. And so I tried R-Factor 2, and the level of detail is actually quite noticeably higher through the force feedback. And although personally I'm not 100% that it's like such a big thing, some people really think this is a huge stepping stone. Because yes, the force feedback in R-Factor 2 is quite a bit better. And since many people are seeing ACC as the leading GT3 game at the moment, my guess is that they want to see it be the lead in every single way, shape or form, where it comes to graphics, sounds, force feedback, online play, GT3 racing in general. But don't take my word for it, go and play R-Factor 2 and then play Assetto Corsa and see what you think. Because it did take a little bit of time for me to say, yeah, actually, I can see why people want some improvement to the force feedback. Because in some cases, with the force feedback, the car goes through a slow corner and it feels like it's really sluggish. But what I do have to say is that Assetto Corsa does some things really, really well with the force feedback. For example, going around Bathurst, I like to drive my Aston Martin and I've got it all set up just right. And then I go and drive the Ferrari 488. And the steering is much heavier and you can feel it through the wheel. But I do agree, some improvements do need to be made. And number 1, oh by the way, I should have mentioned earlier that none of these are in any particular order. But number 1, VR and game optimization. Now, as someone who has a pretty beefy PC, for example, I run a GTX 1080 graphics card with a Ryzen 9 3900X and 32GB of RAM streamed through 4 8GB 3600s from Corsair. It's a powerful PC, and yet this game quite often struggles to run smoothly. A few of you may have watched my video where I went from my Logitech to direct drive. Oddly enough, there were quite a few comments making fun of the fact that I have a very expensive rig and a PC that can't even run the game, when in fact the PC is more than capable of running the game, because on my end it was running perfectly smoothly, but according to OBS it was running at like 20 frames a second. And after I made that video, I went back and tried a number of different recording software softwares. OBS, Streamlabs OBS, Stream Elements, all of them. And I fiddled around with the options a lot of the time and tried to just bring it down a bit. And I still struggle to get a good quality video. But that's not even to mention the fact that even with a beefy PC, it struggles to get above 60 frames a second. Now, as we know, ACC uses the Unreal 4 engine, which is an awesome game engine. And to some that might be like the obvious thing. It's like, oh, it's Unreal 4. Of course you're going to need the most powerful PC to just run it completely smooth, with decent graphics quality. But then you look at the games like Kartcraft, which uses the exact same engine, and the game is optimized infinitely better. Not to mention, Kartcraft has recently had a lighting update, and the game looks better. It looks real in Kartcraft. And not to mention, the VR support for Kartcraft is light years ahead of ACC, which brings me onto the VR improvement. Now, a few people have mentioned, the ones who managed to get early access to the game, said that the VR back then was actually not bad. But then the game was released, and the VR was terrible. And to be honest, the VR is still today just a bit... And let me just say, I love using VR in games. VR with Automobilista 2 and Project Cars 2 are amazing, phenomenal. Heck, even iRacing has really good VR. But with VR in ACC, it's just a different story. Now, some people may actually like the VR. Personally, I don't. And quite a few people of the community don't like it either. It's very difficult to see it into the distance, as it's quite blurry, no matter what you do with your settings or tweaking your headset. It's very difficult to focus. And even the camera positioning inside the car, it can start hovering away from your body, and it's quite a bizarre sensation when that happens. I even had a bug where I was racing around the track and the camera just froze and the car just kept driving, so I was like a spectator. So the VR in ACC does need quite a bit of work doing to it still. Again, what do you guys think? I would love to hear your guys in the comments. Let me know what you think. What would you like to see in ACC being added or improved or developed? And with that, we've got time for just one more thing. Number bonus, the addition of more racing classes. Now, I didn't add this to the top 5 purely because ACC is still a developing game and they're still developing new content for the game, like they've just released the GT4 pack. So we all know they're going to be releasing more and more stuff in the future. But the main question is what that content is going to be. As we know, there are 3 new British tracks coming to the game. But what I would like to see is other classes like the GT1 cars with the Ferrari 575 Maranello and the Aston Martin DBR9. Or even the old Ford GT1. You know, a good old classic class. Group C even would be fantastic. Personally, I would like to see a form of prototype class being introduced to the game like IMSA or LMP 1 and 2. Can you imagine what Kunos could do with the amount of detail and time they've put into GT4s and GT3s? What they would be able to do if they got the Audi R18 or the Porsche 919. I mean, there could be even a possibility for an ACC 24 Hours of Le Mans. Along with that, you could add the GTE class where you've got the Ford GT and the BMW M8. But those are just a few disciplines that could be added to the game, because with the amount of work they've put into the game so far, we can only expect great things to come from Kunos. Because what I appreciate that they've done is they haven't acted like Project Cars 2, where they've just bitten off more than they can chew. They started off with way too many car classes: GT3, road racing, off-roading, rally. All the cars don't feel like they should, whereas Kunos have started with GT3 and focused only on GT3 just to get it absolutely crisp and right, and then they've moved on to GT4, and then hopefully after they've finished with this, they'll move on to another car division and start work. And that's what I can appreciate about it. They've actually taken the time to pace themselves and actually create what they can as good as they can. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. It is a little bit of a deviation from the traditional racing stuff that we do here at Coyote Racing. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I would appreciate if you could let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. If you're new here at this channel, feel free to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the like button. It would really help me out a lot and I would greatly appreciate it. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you guys in the next race. Have a good night, everybody.